Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Using Google Data Studio to Create Custom Dashboards. My name is Chris Jorgenson, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at Unleash Technologies. For those of you who do not know us already, Unleash Technologies has been dedicated to creating award-winning websites and digital experiences for our clients since 2007. We have a particular focus on open source web technologies, with our primary platforms being Drupal and WordPress. Our team has been working with Google Data Studio to create custom dashboards for ourselves and our clients, and today we're excited to share an overview on how it might help your organization to create a better way to track your goals. At this time, I'll be turning things over to Tim Prestianni and Mark Major from our team. Tim and Mark, take it away.
Thanks, CJ. Just to quickly introduce myself, I'm passionate about agile methodologies, particularly Scrum, in which I am certified. I like to ensure that each platform I'm part of creating is habit-forming, innovative, and up to par with the Unleash standard. Today, I've released more than 25 platforms. My work ranges from startups to Fortune 500 companies. I'm also certified in Google Analytics, and that's kind of where my hand really delves into this.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Timothy Prestianni. I'm the Digital Marketing Manager here at Unleash Technologies. I have 8 years of experience in the digital marketing field, specializing in search engine optimization, pay-per-click advertising, inbound marketing, social media, and Google Analytics. I am Google AdWords and Analytics certified, a Microsoft Bing Ads accredited professional, and hold a HubSpot inbound marketing and other certifications for them as well.
Thanks, Tim. Hello to everyone on today's webinar, and thank you for joining. Tim and I are really excited about this one, as it's something that we've been passionate about here at UT for a while now. To begin, I'm going to introduce which types of metrics are relevant, and then Tim and I will walk through some example usages and applications. We're going to attempt to cover a wide range of practical examples, but feel free to ping us in the chat if you have any questions about anything outside of the scope topics here, and we'll try to answer you during Q&A. So the first item we're covering here is, what should you be tracking? Often we have an idea of what we want to track in our heads, but we don't necessarily pick the best way to measure that. For example, if I want to track the success of my e-commerce site, knowing the amount of site visits is useful, but it doesn't tell me that my site is successful. A random burst in site visits may lead to sales via my site, but it's not the end goal we're looking for here. Knowing that the amount of sales via my site is increasing does tell me that I'm heading towards success. We call measurements that do not accurately measure goals vanity metrics because they tend to look great on a report to your superiors or even to yourself when you say, hey, look, the number of site visits are up, but they don't actually measure success. Keep this in mind when creating your own company metrics or performance indicators. Let's take a look at some marketing examples of data.
Thanks, Mark. Google Data Studio supports a wide range of data sources. There are 3 main groups of data connectors for us to choose from. The first are file uploads via CSV. The second are database connectors like Cloud SQL. And the third are Google-based products. Think Google Analytics, Google Ads, Search Console, YouTube, and Google Sheets. Having customizable individual page elements allows you to display many different types of data from different data sources on your dashboard. For example, website conversions, geo-targeted location information, CTA button click events, and even the most popular pages visited on your website. But most importantly, Data Studio makes displaying information on your dashboard clean and easy to consume using a variety of tables to display information, including time series charts, bar graphs, pie charts, location maps, and more.
Thanks, Tim. Let's bring an example supporting the points you just made. Say your marketing team is running numerous campaigns across multiple platforms and tagging them in Google Analytics. We can import that data into Studio to provide a single clean space for team members unfamiliar with Google Analytics to interact with. In this example, we're tracking campaigns, the revenue generated, and new versus returning users, all crucial metrics for understanding your engine of growth. This high-level understanding of campaign success is crucial when displaying goals internally. Additionally, this also takes away some additional formatting legwork you may have to do. For example, you may need to manually enter this information from analytics into a report that needs to have a simplified view. Well, by creating a dashboard, you can maintain the same design and formatting while having the data update automatically for you. Which brings me to my next point. We all have company goals that are simply not trackable via a platform that connects directly with Data Studio. For example, you may be tracking user reviews of your site via an unsupported tool, or perhaps you have internal documents that are being used to track team members' performance. The answer to all of this is spreadsheets. Thankfully, Studio allows you to connect to spreadsheets and then display the data in your dash. Bear in mind there are two ways to go about this. We can either upload the file as a CSV to Studio, or my preferred method, connect to a Google Sheet. The reason I prefer Google Sheets is that it will dynamically update Data Studio's content if the sheet is updated. Bear in mind that the formatting of the sheets is also important. Studio tends to struggle if you utilize long tables. That is, columns for subcategories. In the example shown in this slide, we have different kinds of fruit, for example. It's better to track the stats related to them under the category fruit rather than have individual columns for each type of fruit. A quick way to remember this is columns are categories, rows are subcategories. A quick example to demonstrate this before I hand this over to Tim again. In the example dashboard here, I'm tracking the month, sales figures, and ongoing initiatives in one sheet. We display this in one dashboard to visually show how initiatives are impacting our sales figures. Let's talk about how your team members can interact with this data. Tim?
The next few slides, we'll be talking about some interactive data controls, starting with filtering by date range. The date range filter allows you to set and control the time frame of your report, giving you the ability to view data that is important to you from any time in the past. You add this filtering option by clicking on the date range filter icon and dragging it into the header section of your report. By default, the filter will prompt you to add a date range. You then go to the top right-hand corner where you can select the date range. For this example, we chose 30 days. As you change the date, all numbers on the report will be affected as long as there is no custom date ranges set. In that case, you will need to remove the custom date ranges for the visualization updates created by the filter to take effect. By changing the setting from custom to auto, it will then allow them to be manipulated by the date range filter. Now when users view a report, they will have the ability to filter by date. Mixing data sources. You can display information from multiple data sources on one dashboard. This gives you the ability to mix and match key information located on different data sources into one simple to view dashboard. To do this, simply select the type of chart and format you would like to display on. Then select your data source. As we talked earlier, there are many groups of data connectors. Here are just a few: Google Ads, Analytics, MySQL, Search Console. Once your data source has been connected, you can then choose a filter the information in many different ways. By date, as we just spoke about previously, or filter using dimensions, which we will explore next. This brings us to filtering by dimensions. A dimension is typically a categorical value, such as a country, event action, channel grouping, or many other options available for you to segment your data by through Google Analytics. You can filter by dimension by choosing the data source you would like to add a filter to, then selecting Add a Filter. Then name your filter. This makes it much easier to find it after it has been created. This is especially useful if you're using multiple filters throughout your dashboard. Then choose the data you would like to include or exclude using your filter. For this example, we chose to include data from the event category that contains, let's say, for example, downloads of a PDF document from one specific URL. We can also set up dimension filters to show data coming from specific countries, states, based on events, and many, many other categories. Interactive filters allow you to quickly and cleanly see data that is imported and important to you at that time. Interactive filters allow you to dive into a particular campaign or category and see information pertaining only to that segmented group. This way you can easily view reports from both a high level and a more granular level for specific information. For this example, I clicked on the campaign labeled AW Bags. We can now clearly view product checkouts, new user, and revenue data that pertain only to the AW Bags campaign, which we could also filter further by date range to gain more insight in this particular campaign. Next, Mark will discuss sharing and tracking goals.
Thanks, Tim. Now that you've shown us how team members can interact with Data Studio by using filters, I want to return to my previous example of the campaign dashboard. By having a studio dashboard set up, you can share viewing access to individuals across your company or even to the public. This is great when combined with the interactive features of Studio because it allows people to really drill down into what is happening in a visual manner. In this example, I clicked the $100 mark on the red sales line to filter the initiatives shown in the table below it. I now know the initiative that was running in August, and I can see the impact on that month's sales figures. Another great usage for Studio is simple dashboards to show around company monitors. This is one of my favorite usages for Data Studio, as its management is so easy and the cost to implement is so much lower than custom solutions. By plugging in a microcomputer to a wall-mounted screen, you have a quick and easy company dashboard solution. Additionally, Data Studio allows you to export your current view as a PDF report. As I mentioned earlier, this is pretty handy if you need a stylized report with updated information in a hurry.
We hope that everyone has gained a better understanding of how powerful integrating custom dashboards via Data Studio can be. One of the things that is really exciting about Data Studio is that it's offered as a free tool. Just go to datastudio.google.com and you can start creating your own custom dashboards using your own data controls that we've covered today for your business organization. As always, Unleashed Technologies is here to assist with setting up your dashboard, connecting data sources, applying filters, and helping you establish meaningful and trackable KPIs. We are now going to open up for questions, and if time allows, we will display a live version of the dashboards we use through this presentation.
Great, thanks Tim and Mark. So as Tim just mentioned, we built a lot of time in today for questions on purpose. So we thought better to just do it that route than just show. Our first question here today comes from Scott, and he asked you guys, what are some of the pros and cons of using Data Studio versus something like Microsoft Business Intelligence or Microsoft BI?
Sure, I can handle that one. So number one, Data Studio is free. I believe you need a paid account for Microsoft BI. So it's got that one advantage. Another advantage Data Studio has over BI is its suite is a little bit more intuitive to use. It can be picked up a lot faster by someone familiar with Google tools than necessarily someone who is a Microsoft aficionado. For instance, if you're familiar with Google Analytics and how you can set up campaigns, Data Studio tends to share a lot of the same terminology.
Guys, Adam asked, can I set up a dashboard using my company email, or do I need a Gmail account to do this?
That's a great question. I actually ran into that issue myself. Yes, you do need a Google account to access Data Studio. You can get around that by setting up a Google account with your work email. It won't give you a Gmail inbox to receive email from, but it will give you access to the Google suite of tools.
Thanks, Mark. Our next question comes from Janine, and she asked two different questions. So does Data Studio link to financial systems like Dynamics GP, or do you just upload spreadsheets, or both?
You can use both. You can definitely use spreadsheets to upload that information. We would recommend using the Google Sheets to do so. That way, whenever information is updated on those sheets, it will automatically be updated on your dashboard. For the first question, what was that again?
Yeah, I would say if you did want to connect directly to your financial system and it's not currently supported in the Data Studio tools, if you have a developer on hand or development team, they can typically assist you connecting to that system, either using a third-party system, or if your system has its own API, that's also potentially a feasible option.
Great, thanks guys. Another question comes to us today from Megan, and she asks, is the Data Studio limited to online goals, or is there a way to bring offline KPIs and goals into this as well?
Great question. I'm actually going to backtrack to one of our previous sheets regarding spreadsheets. I mentioned there that if you're going to track company goals, if you're going to track company goals, you sometimes need to plug in information that just isn't supported online or is just not measured online. So just entering those goals in a Google Sheet, you can kind of have that data update in Google Sheets whenever you update that spreadsheet you created. Does that answer that question?
I think so, yeah. All right, keeping going here. Our next question comes from Dawn, and she's asking, sorry, give me a sec to just read this, guys. How can I hide my dashboard or keep it safe from people I don't want to see it?
Sure. When you grant permission for other people to see or view your dashboard, you can also exclude people from being able to view that dashboard or see the information set there. If you're familiar with the Google Suite, you know, when you share files like Google Docs and stuff like that, you can go ahead and select who can view, who can edit, and who can comment on different things. And it works the same way with Data Studio. So you can you know, pick who you want to be able to see and view the data that would be located on that URL.
All right, guys, next question is from Chris, and he asks, does Google Data Studio currently sync with HubSpot?
Great question. So Data Studio does not currently sync directly with HubSpot as a supported tool. I believe HubSpot itself provides some documentation as to how to interact between the two platforms, but the answer in a nutshell is you need to use some kind of third-party system or their API.
And guys, what are some examples of, are there any that have currently APIs baked in to Data Studio in terms of CRM specifically?
I know Salesforce has its own connector through Data Studio, so you can connect using that. I don't think anybody else for it.
The list is pretty comprehensive. We know for a fact that HubSpot isn't listed there because we've personally gone ahead to try and check that out. But there are a bunch of systems supported if you scroll down there. I guess connectors.
Yep. When you go to add your connectors, you're going to be taken to a screen that's going to have probably 15 or 20 different data connectors that you can use there, and then underneath that, there's either going to be a whole subset of connectors that you can actually use as well. You can scroll through there, and also on the side of the screen, you can sometimes find some connectors as well.
Great, thanks, Tim and Mark. Our next question is from Eric, and he says, as an internal marketing manager, what do you guys estimate the ramp-up time is for someone using this for the first time?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So it depends how custom you want this to look. If you want fancy graphics, then it depends on how proficient you are with using, I guess, online technologies to manipulate graphics and etc. But if you're familiar with Google Analytics and that kind of thing, the ramp-up time is actually minimal. I would say you could get used to using Data Studio within a day.
Yeah. And Google also does provide a few like templates that you can go and start with They give you basic information. All you would have to do is connect to your analytics account or your AdWords account or Search Console, and it's going to pull all that information over for you, automatically. It's really when you get into, creating custom features where it takes a little bit of time. But honestly, most of that stuff you can find either, online through doing some digging, or, you can let us know and, we can, maybe guide you in the right direction.
Great, thank you guys. Our next question comes from Rachel, and she says, I work for a membership association, and I'm wondering how this would complement our AMS, which is Association Management System for those who aren't aware, and would this be a good complement to that?
That's a good question too. So it really depends on your business goals rather than how does it look next to your AMS system. So if you're tracking, company metrics against that to display up on a board or just to share reports around to team members, showing are you meeting your sales goals, and then comparing it to the data you're receiving from your AMS, maybe an example of how that could complement it. I'm not sure that it fully answers your question. I need a little bit more detail there.
I know through working with a few organizations that there are some who track, sign-ups to their memberships and emails and stuff like that. Those things would all be something most of the time that would have to be set up through like a Google data sheet and then brought into a dashboard typically.
Yeah, Rachel, and just in terms of our clients, we've seen some of our association clients taking these dashboards, but they certainly they're meant to complement an AMS system, and there are some ways we can pull data depending on if it's memberships, renewals, things like that. So definitely something we've started to get into with our clients in the membership association space. All right, Mark, and what are we looking at now? Is this the live dashboard?
Yeah, so a couple of live dashboards we have over here. This is actually one of the initial ones we referenced in the presentation. So what's nice about this one is that it employs a lot of the interactive tools that Tim was mentioning. For instance, we've got a bunch of initiatives that I mocked up in a spreadsheet. This table over here is pulling in that info. Spreadsheet is populated with the month, the initiatives we're running, the sales figures, and the goals for those sales figures for the initiatives, right? The diagram above, the timeline above, it pulls in the sales figures. If you need to see what was happening specifically in that month, you need to understand, for instance, sales went up to $40. There's a marker below it to tell you there was an initiative running at that point. You can go ahead and filter down to that specific initiative. The other dashboard we have up is the campaign that Tim was referencing in his presentation. Again, it works very similarly in terms of interaction. We need to identify any specific campaigns that were going on that time and see how much revenue they were pulling in on a specific date. You can interact with the chart to view that. Or in reverse, we can actually use Tim's example if you want to see how AW bags are performing just specifically on that timeline. Do so.
Guys, I have a question from Kelly that just came in regarding social media, and she says, is there a way to incorporate social media tracking into these dashboards? Is that something that's built in? Obviously, no longer with Google+, but maybe some of the other channels?
For Facebook and Twitter, I believe there are some third-party integrations that you can use, that you can pull that kind of information over into Data Studio. I can't remember if it is offered directly from Google itself, but I know for a fact there are a number of third-party integrations out there that will allow you to do that.
Yeah. Additionally, if you're pretty savvy with Google Analytics, you may be tracking your online campaigns via that as well. So if you kind of like combine all of that into one platform that is Google Analytics, and then transfer that data over here for presentations, that's another workaround.
You can track through your traffic sources and pull that onto the dashboard. And if you have some UTM parameters set up, Google's going to be able to tell you that this traffic's coming from Twitter, this is from Facebook, this is from LinkedIn, and that's all stuff that you can easily display on Data Studio directly through Google Analytics.
Guys, got a great question here from Gonzo, and he asks, can a Data Studio report use a global style sheet for all data visualizations?
Another great question. Answer is no.
Okay. Is that just not a feature yet that's supported?
It does support copying and pasting. And it of course allows you to duplicate pages. I've got a couple of pages set up here. I'm actually going to bring this as an example. You'll notice this says copy of sample Google Analytics marketing website. So this is one of the templates that Data Studio offers. So all I did was I just, in the first page, I changed the banner, added a logo, a little descriptor. I left everything else pretty much the same in that template. But then when I wanted to create my new page, I simply copied the top part, created that new page, and I pasted it in here. 2-second job.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Also, Gonzo asks, can you show us a Data Studio page and walk us through connecting it to real data? So I know you guys have some of these built out to Google Sheets. Is that something we can do on the webinar, or is that something that…
Unfortunately, the way that we have everything connected, if we were to go in and start connecting, you're going to see some…
Okay, proprietary data. Okay.
I can show you without getting to that point how to do that.
Sure.
So for instance, we have this chart over here. Simply select the diagram you want to modify, and at the top you'll see select your data source. By clicking on that, if you have other data sources that exist, it'll provide this as an option. Otherwise, you can simply scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, where it'll provide you the option to add a new data source.
There'll be a blue plus sign there and say add data source. You just click on that, and it's going to take you to a screen where it provides you with all the available connectors.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. All right, I have another question coming in here. It's just being typed. Okay, Susan asks, what is the difference between Google Analytics, AdWords, and Data Studio?
Sure. They're all part of the Google suite, but each individually work separate of each other. Google Analytics is where you're able to track all the analytical data for your website, people coming to and from your website, behaviors inside of. Google Ads is going to be where all your paid PPC performance ads are going to be housed. Now you can connect analytics and ads together to pull that information into analytics itself, but they are two separate platforms offered through Google. They would have their own unique tracking IDs, so that information can be shared. So I mean, it's all the same platform, but just different parts of the puzzle.
Yeah, I would add as well that Data Studio is a tool to display any data. It connects particularly well with the Google suite, which it would, right? But it's a way of formulating that data in a way that's more presentable and is a bit more lightweight than the Google Analytics dashboard, for instance. You can lay out how you want to reduce the amount of data shown and add a little bit more interactivity.
And that's especially helpful for people who've never used analytics before or aren't familiar with how to navigate through analytics. Sometimes it can be a little overwhelming if you're just trying to find simple numbers for a project or an organization or something like that, or a campaign, and you have to dive into Google Analytics and know exactly where to go to get that. If you already have those things preset, it's easy to send around to individuals inside of your organization to view that data cleanly.
And Mark, just from your experience as a project manager, I'm assuming this has been a way to basically communicate with the C-level from some of your clients without, in terms of what Tim was just saying, if you have to dig deep in analytics, the steps can be kind of cumbersome.
Yes, and I believe that's kind of what Tim was alluding to there. people aren't necessarily going to have time to dig down into how analytics work. Having a quick report that they can pull up, that they can interact with quickly, it's easy to understand. It's not technical. It makes Data Studio a very powerful tool for those individuals.
Excellent. And for our attendees, if you have any last questions, please shoot them over to us now. Another one from Gonzo, guys, is does Google offer, and this is a great question, by the way, does Google offer how-to videos for Data Studio? If not, are there resources you recommend for self-training?
Absolutely. Google, if you go on the YouTube, Google does a pretty good job of the startup and how to get started with Google Data Studio there. There's also a bunch of other individuals out there who do a great job on showing, how to start up and how to connect different things. There's one.
I want to point out as well, Google has pretty comprehensive documentation online if you prefer to read up on it.
Instead of watching,
And on the first time starting up Data Studio, it actually provides you with a mock dashboard that kind of walks you through some of the basics of using Data Studio, which is pretty handy.
And for people who are actively online that are showing video-wise, there's a YouTube channel, Measure School. They do a great job with showing basic Google Data Studio setup, how to use the connectors and stuff like that, how to customize your screen. So that they may be that might be a pretty helpful resource for you.
Great, thank you, Tim and Mark. So that brings us to the end of our webinar today. If you'll flip back, if you want to reach out to our team here at Unleashed Technologies, the best way to do that is by emailing us at start@unleashed-technologies.com. Even if it's a simple question, I know Tim and Mark are happy to always pitch in and help. So definitely look to that if anyone on the webinar today has any follow-up questions that they weren't able to ask or would just rather ask in a one-on-one setting. So on behalf of our team here at Unleashed Technologies, thank you guys so much for joining us today, and we'll see you at our next webinar in March.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.